Hi everyone, this is Sarah Davis. I am your instructor for your Law and Ethics for Pharmacy Technicians course, and we are now in week 5 of your course. Week 5 is a review week. You will be taking your midterm exam this week, so I'm just going to kind of go through some high points of the 4 weeks of presentations that you've had available to you in from your instructor section since the beginning of the course. So over the past 4 weeks, we've had 4 different PowerPoint presentations, and basically what's going to happen is the culmination of this week is going to be just one single test over all 4 weeks material. That test is still a multiple choice test. It's going to contain a total of 50 questions. If you have any questions about those questions before you start the exam, feel free to reach out to me this week. There is no discussion post this week. There is no assignment this week. So your total focus this week is strictly on this midterm exam. So again, if you have any problems or questions, please make sure you're reaching out to me. One thing that I would suggest that you do, in addition to obviously looking back at these presentations, listening to my video today and those things, would be to go back and look at those 4 weeks of tests. So each of those past 4 weeks you've had about 10 or so questions on those exams. Go back and look at those because those are obviously important high points of those weekly pieces of material. In addition, I would also suggest that you go to the end of each of your chapters. At the end of each of the chapters of reading, there are some like questions for thought types of things at the end that I would suggest that you go over. If you can answer those questions after you've read the chapters or reviewed the chapters, then you should be in pretty good shape for this week's midterm. So basically the first chapter was, all about legislation. What is a law? How are laws put together? Who's responsible for what? So you looked at things about the different courts, criminal versus civil law. You looked specifically at malpractice. So make sure that you understand what malpractice is and what types of cases would involve malpractice. Whether or not they're intentional versus unintentional, doesn't necessarily mean that it's not malpractice. It could still be malpractice even though it's unintentional. The week 2 looked at the history of law, so you kind of got a brief overview of all of the different laws that led up to where we are right now, and I kind of went through them in the PowerPoint, everything from the very, very basic things that we started off with, which was the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906, up to where we currently are now. So currently, the Drug Listing Act of 72 was about where we stopped in this particular chapter. So, we went through the Comprehensive Drug Prevention Act, the things that led up to the Controlled Substance Act, all of those things. So those are the topics that were covered in week 2. Week 3 was specifically around the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, because this particular act is what created the FDA, and that was what the important piece of this was. So what you want to make sure that you're looking at on this is some of the regulations that came into effect with the creation of the FDA. So things around misbranding, things around labeling, the steps involved in getting a new drug to market. Those are all very important things that we covered in this chapter. Some of the requirements that you must do for dispensing, things like that. So that's what week 3 was all about. And the final week in preparation for this particular final or midterm exam was week 4. And week 4 was all about the Controlled Substance Act. So we're looking at all of the things around, how things are scheduled, how these drugs are in the different schedules, what the definitions are with the Controlled Substance Act, some of the different things that are involved in registration, what you can and cannot do if you're registered with the DEA. How to determine whether or not a DEA number is valid. If you don't remember how to do that check of the DEA number, make sure you go back and look at my this PowerPoint to see how to do that. So and that was on, looks like slide 13. So make sure that you go ahead and look at this checksum formula, because that'll be important. And again, if you have any questions over any of the material from the past 4 weeks, make sure you reach out to me before you try the final, or the midterm, I should say, and have a great week.